You should be okay there. So yeah, it's called Portrait of the Artist, as a viable alternative to death. And it's about when you meet an artist. And you meet the artist, and you talk. Or it's fair to say that he talks, and you listen. And these are the things he says. He says he is working on a project where he tracks how much energy he will burn from talking over the course of a single year. He does this by carrying around a stopwatch and timing his conversations. He is also filming himself in his sleep in case he chooses to communicate with his empty room. At the end of the year, he will calculate the number of days, hours, and minutes that he spoke, and the corresponding energy spent doing so. Then he's going to prepare a buffet for the opening night with the same number of calories. He hopes to put paid to the notion that talk is cheap, and he calls that art. He says he will always apologise. He is not afraid of saying sorry. Not because he is often wrong or someone else is right, but because it's always easier. He says it is crucial for art to be confusing, difficult. If you come out the other end of a song or a poem or a short story, or if you look at a painting, a sculpture, or anything in between, and you fully understood it as the creator intended, then that piece, regardless of what it is, or how well constructed it is a failure. And he calls that art. He says he goes running along the beach early in the morning in the hopes of finding a dead body. He says he shivers with fear every time he remembers those late-night vodka drinking sessions at university, which ended with the solemn, doom-laden promise, the promise to never change. He says, in a small way, he hopes that the climate change denialists win. When they do, planting a tree will become a dangerous act, a rebellious performance art, terrorism. He says he lives under the constant fear that when it's been longer than a week since he's seen a friend, that he'll no longer recognise them when he sees them next. He says he believes that if the Illuminati do rule the world, then they are as hopeless and easily distracted and corruptible as everyone else. He says he wishes he could see his reflection in the concrete. He says he wants to spray paint mirrors onto concrete walls, and he would call that art. He says he, as an artist, is the monster in your closet, full of untouchable power. He says you don't know what he is capable of. He induces fear, awe, and danger wherever he goes, as all artists should. He says a bottle thrown to the ground in anger is an excellent metaphor for the frustration felt by humanity. Once it's out of your hands, you can't retake control, and no action can be undone. You can try to pick up the pieces, put them back together in a facsimile of how it used to be, but by then it is already too late. You will probably scrape your hand along the flesh of the bottle as you do this, and in turn will produce a second surge of anger as the blood curls around your finger. You cannot win from this point, he says. You can only throw away the bottle and tape up your finger and hope it won't become infected. Because in the end, he says, the glass doesn't care if it cuts you. And he thinks that is art. He says he thinks a lot about the girl that got away. Wishes he told her about how much he loved the feeling of certain doom which followed their romance. He says that they both knew it, saw it, felt it, but instead of acknowledging it, they spent what time they had looking past each other and drinking far too much on work nights. He wishes he could have drawn it out further. He says on the trips across the country to be together, he wishes he'd booked a hotel room, brought a bottle of whiskey and wooed her. He says he wished he hadn't been living out of boxes on his friend's couch at the time. He says he wishes he could listen to Fleetwood Mac without blushing. He says he wished that they could hang out more now as friends, but when they cross paths, they both wordlessly realise how far they have moved on. And even though he is not happy, she is, and he wouldn't want to ruin that. And even though they'll never be in love, he says he smiles because they'll never truly hate each other either. He says he wishes they could hang out more because she was fucking cool. He says the thing about death is that it only bothers the living. He says he is worried about dying, and the fear of it consumes him, but he's looking forward to the part afterwards. He says the recessed lettering on gravestones is symbolic of the loss felt for a person who has died. He says he hopes they can inscribe on his grave so that the letters protrude to symbolise all he gave and all that was given to him. As if to say, he was born and he left this world with more than he started with. He says artists are only worried about community and seen about working together in harmony when they are worried about failure or need money. Many languish in this area for decades because they fear the next stage of the artist's journey, the isolation of success. He says he tries to socialise constantly for fear of missing out, but he always feels relief when he is finally alone. He says he has created a series of drip paintings whilst wearing a blindfold. After they were completed, his assistants removed them from the studio and sent them off for auction, where they were each bought for a considerable price. The buyers were given a series of instructions as follows. The works must be displayed, exhibited for the public, but not in an obvious public place. These exhibitions must happen on a semi-regular basis, at least 3 times a year. Should he, the artist, see any of his work, he must be informed and the painting must be returned to him. Once returned, the painting will be destroyed. Once destroyed, the buyer will receive a full refund. The buyers of the paintings are encouraged, but not forced, to consider the buyers of the other paintings rivals. And as rivals, they are encouraged to contrive circumstances in which he, the artist, will see his own paintings. The winner is the buyer who is the last of these paintings at the end of the contest. And he calls that art. He says he stopped getting invited to parties after his friends discovered he was recording their conversations and then paying actors to recreate these scenes on stage. He says he filmed them and then posted them as videos onto YouTube. 1 or 2 of these went viral. The content of the conversations was neither important nor controversial, but it drew praise for the way it represented naturalistic conversation. He says tedium is a powerful force and under-examined by artists. People shirk away from it, he says. They loathe it, they fear it, they revile it, because it reminds them too much of their own lives. And he calls those videos art. He says his favourite conspiracy theorists are flat earthers. He says he wishes the world was flat, if only because that would be really fucking cool. Think how different the laws of physics of the universe would have to be for that to work, he says. He says that reproducing art from memory in the style of performance poetry or in the oral storytelling tradition is grossly underappreciated by other types of artists. He says he won't take a sculptor seriously unless they can replicate their creation live on a stage without reference to the original. Sometimes he will turn up at an art exhibition with a slab of granite, a chisel and a bad attitude. And he calls that art. He says he wants more people to write. Everyone should be a poet, a playwright, a novelist, whatever. His wishes are not altruistic, he says, but because most people will be terrible and it will make him look better. He says he attends a couple of flat viewings every day, not because he needs to move or because he is nosy, but so he can hide photographs of his work in the tenants' bedrooms, under their pillows. To the back of the photographs, he staples a business card with his name, address, phone number, and the epitaph, "I'm sorry, please call me." He says he hopes one day he will get lucky and discover his daughter is one of these tenants, that she will see these photographs and contact him again. He is yet to find her, but he will never give up. He will never stop trying. He says he would give everything he has to start again, but until he can find a way to do this, he will keep going. He says he will keep writing and painting and performing and sculpting and creating art until he comes up with a piece of art which will right all of his wrongs. There is still time. He says his wife is gone for good, but he hopes one day to see his daughter so he can apologise, though he does not expect her to forgive him. He says his favourite movement of art is abstract expressionism. Whilst this is notionally true, he also says it because due to his success in the 40s and 50s and its ubiquity across time, when he says that his favourite type of art is abstract expressionism, people are either unsure what it is and too afraid to look stupid to call into question why he likes it. He says he hopes his last words will escape his lips and catch on the breeze, where it will fly across the city, catching the ear of hopeless romantics, troubled poets, and his ex-wife. They will think of him, and they will never quite know why. And he calls that art. He calls it art, he says, because there is art, and there are other things. He says there is art, and there are other things. Art, and other things. There is art, and there are other things. There is art, and there are other things. Art, and other things. He says there is art, and there are other things. Art, and other things. Art.
Art and other things, he says.
Thank you.